Hello everyone, hello and welcome for this new release. We are going to talk about Xen Orchestra 5.76, so it's already a new release time. It's also Halloween time, so happy Halloween to everyone that is celebrating Halloween. And this month we have many topics to cover. We are still working on Lite and we have some component to show you. And we have also been working on the backup and the backup performances in particular. And Oliver will explain to you everything that is coming in the next few release. The release itself should be available for everyone on the latest release branch in the few hours to come. And that's it, I think, on my side. So, Oliver, if you want to take over and explain everything, it's to you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much, and hi everyone. So indeed, happy Halloween for everyone celebrating it, and then let's enter into the main topic and the main topics of this series, which is relatively important this month. So the first point that is a preview, but a pretty important one, is related to the backup, and especially the backup speed. So in our constant work to improve the way that backups are working, we started to split the big VHD files in smaller blocks and so on. We also started to explore many other possibilities, like adding, like we did already, compression, encryption, in the future, a tiering system allowing you to back up the backup to another place in a fully async fashion, deduplication, instant restore, immutability, and many things that will come in the next months. So that's very exciting because now we truly unlock, the potential of our backup system, and we are moving forward and bringing new features relatively often. But this month, it's about the backup speed by itself, by relying on something else to be able to export faster than the default VHD handler. So as you may know, when you export, or when I said export, it's doing a backup, but behind it, it's the XCP-ng export mechanism. We rely on what we call a VHD handler, which is basically the host DOM0, to be more precise, that is getting the snapshot disk mounted inside the DOM0 and exposing it through HTTP. And then you just read the VHD file, but it could be faster than that, and it's also consumed some resources to expose these VHD disks through HTTP. There's another way to export data called NBD, which is not a new protocol. It exists since more than 20 years in the Linux kernel, but it's also available in XCP-ng and used, in fact, behind the scene already to make what we call Xen storage motion or live migration with the storage. So we used that to see if we could use this NBD handler to download the blocks directly instead of relying on the VHD. So the thing is, NBD is just exposing a block device directly through a protocol called NBD by itself. It's NBD // like HTTP, but it's not exactly like HTTP. So anyway, it's very fast and you consume less resources. The only downside of using NBD is you just see the whole block device and you have no idea which block changed since the last backup, and it's very important to make a delta backup. So what we did is to use the VHD export, which is able to get the diff between two snapshots, and this VHD is telling us which blocks change. So we rely on the VHD information to read the right blocks inside the NBD. So in short, VHD will hold just what we need in terms of metadata, which blocks we need to download, and then we'll fetch them in NBD. And the other great perk of NBD is the fact that you could do multiple download in parallel. You could choose yourself to pause, start, whatever you want with this huge list of blocks. So it's very, very flexible. On the short terms, it allows to make the backup a bit faster, depending on obviously your machine, reduce the pressure on the DOM0, and in the end of the day, we might use it to get somehow a way to resume backup that are interrupted by just counting which blocks we already downloaded and which are not. And if for whatever reason there's a problem with the network link whatsoever, or Xen Orchestra itself, then it could restart when it was before. So it's not yet available, but that would be probably a next step, and it's very, very interesting to be able to do that. So in short, this is a preview feature, so you can enable it. There's a how to test it paragraph where you could do that. So feel free to take a look. But again, as it's a preview thing, please don't do that with your production data yet. We still need to have some feedback from you, by the way, but also internally by doing that for our own test infrastructure and our even own production. So we like to do some preview in our own production, but we are very, very careful on that. So do that only if you are very confident, and your feedback will be very welcome, especially we've seen a lot of speed improvements, but it's very different between very old CPUs, more recent CPUs, the speed of your network, and so on. So the percentage of performance increase could be very variable depending on what you have. So feedback will be very welcome. So after that, we'll talk about another feature, which is the cloud config drive removal after VM creation. So this feature is not a very big feature, I would say, technically speaking, but it was, I think, important for a lot of people asking for that, especially people using our Terraform provider. So when you use a Terraform provider, you could automatically spawn your entire infrastructure as code, which is very, very interesting. But then people using that wanted also to remove the cloud config drive after creation. And this was a kind of the opposite of the full automation, because you had to manually remove those drives. They wanted to have some automation to make this removal, but it took some time to do it. So we said, just stop, try to do that yourself. We will include that feature in VM creation. So now when you create a VM with the cloud config drive, you have a choice on advanced configuration to check a box that will automatically remove this special drive when the VM boots. It detects if you have the tools installed. So that's how we are able to know when the VM booted. So please, if you are using Cloud Init, double check that you have your VM tools installed in your template. I mean, beyond this feature, this is I would say a template 101 best practice, because you can create the templates, pre-install the tools inside the template. That will be very useful for the future in any case. So this little feature will be very handy when you don't want to keep the cloud config drive. So just check it, create the VM, and then after the boot, it will disappear. So very handy and pretty simple to do. Let's go for the next feature, which is not really a feature, but let's say a fix, and even could be seen as a security fix. If you remember, we released 2 months ago, I think, the backup encryption feature, allowing you to get your backup data fully encrypted with a passphrase, which is very handy to store whatever you like even on a place you don't trust, like a shared NFS, S3, whatever you like. The thing is, we were using AES CBC protocol, and we had an email from someone, Tom W., a senior security engineer working at a major video game publisher security team, and it said, well, the CBC algorithm is, let's say, could be attacked with a padding Oracle attack, and so we investigated, and indeed we were using this cipher, and then he said the GCM cipher will be a lot more secure without exposing this. So we immediately fixed this and used the GCM thing instead of the CBC. So I wanted to thank him for this contact and the ability to tell us about this. Obviously, this is the right timing to tell you that we got a security policy in place. So if you are seeing a similar problem or anything security related, you could click on the link to see what we support in terms of security. And it's exactly the same thing for XCP-ng. We got a dedicated inbox to work on the security reports, and we like to have this. So anything that seems to be insecure or any threats that you are seeing on Xen Orchestra or XCP-ng, feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to work on that and fix it. The next topic is related to performances inside the Xen Orchestra web UI when you want to restore a backup. So by default, when you enter the Xen Orchestra backup restore view, Xen Orchestra had to fetch all the existing backups, and it took a lot of time to do it when you have a very large number of VMs and retention for all your VMs. And so we decided to integrate a cache system. So we did that in two different steps. We weren't really happy with the first step, so we decided to improve it even again for the latest release. So if you want to learn more about it, there's a link to the whole article, which is pretty decent in size, explaining how we made that cache system and how fast it is right now. I just left a graph showing you the difference in terms of performance, in terms of milliseconds to load it, and it was more than 1.5 seconds with before the cache system, and now it's around 200 milliseconds to load it, so it's a lot faster. And if you want to read more about it, feel free to click and read that article as soon as up in the next minutes after this video. So let's go for the Exolite topic. So as you know, Exolite is our drop-in replacement of Xen Center, XCP-ng Center, but directly bundled inside XCP-ng. So we are making progress on that. So we can add a new release or something like this with a dedicated settings page where you could change the language, the dark light mode, and got various information regarding Exolite. We also improved the dashboard, so you can have more information on your pool. So you can see the second screenshot showing more information on the CPU usage and storage usage and so on. I think we already did that build, so it should be already available if you want to take a look on it. Or if it's not the case, that will be refreshed in the next minutes or hours. And obviously, we'll have more stuff coming next month since we are still finalizing the latest components to get a very nice displayed stuff. So it will go faster and faster. As you can imagine, I would say the longer step is to design the whole thing, to build the components, and then it's just between quotes plugging components between each other and showing you the information. Obviously, nothing is written in the stone, and all the feedback is welcome. And again, there's a link to a previous blog post if you want to discover how to deploy it. Also, let me give you an interesting news. As XCP-ng 8.3 is around the corner for the first alpha release, we'll try to get Exolite directly bundled into it. So stay tuned on that topic. We'll have some announcements in the next months or so. So you will, get more information about XCP-ng 8.3 and Exolite in the same time. Regarding the next component coming soon in Exolite, we'll have some nice graphs for the CPUs and network and things like that. So expect live graph very soon, and so likely for the next months. You can enjoy those and got more and more things like even actions, start, stop VMs, and things like that. So basically, before the end of the year, you'll have a basically functional Exolite, so you could start to play with the VMs directly inside XCP-ng hosts without needing anything else outside it. Let's go for the next topic, which is license binding for support license with XCP-ng. So in very short, now if you got a pro support license for your host, it's not truly a license, but it's more knowing which hosts are protected with our pro support. You only gave us the UID of the host you wanted to be protected, and that's it. And you didn't have any capability to see or being shown directly which hosts are under pro support inside infrastructure via Xen Orchestra. So we changed that, and now you could get all your existing support license directly in Xen Orchestra and bind them to the host you want it to be protected. So this way, it will be easier to you to know which hosts are right now protected, which aren't, which also could be helpful to maybe you forgot to get some support for some hosts, but also the ability to bind directly on a whole pool. So as you might remember, we support an entire pool and not a partial host into a pool. So if you just want to deploy, I don't know, 5 XCP-ng host license on a pool, you just deploy on the pool object and it will automatically bind all the licenses. So it's very handy. You could see the license you will have available and so on and so on. So that will help to track what you need to be supported or not directly inside the Xen Orchestra UI. And also a plus about this is you can move a support license from a host to another. For example, you have a host which is down for good, or you just reinstalled it. There's a new UID. No problem. You can just rebind the license from an unused host to a new host, so you are covered. Again, the license stuff is not made to be in your path. It's made to be sure that you get support for the right machine. So it's not meant to block any feature whatsoever. It's just here to know which hosts are supported or not. That's it. So it's not complicated process. It's just few clicks. You don't have to deploy whatever license server and things we could see for other let's say a virtualization provider that's meant to give you more information and to be more convenient to you. That's it. Another thing, not the last one, which is in addition, let's say, to XOA check. So as you may know, if you are using XOA, so the turnkey appliance, we got a program doing various checks on the health of a Xen Orchestra virtual machine. And we had a very subtle bug recently in support with someone using the TOTP feature, so the timed one-time password thing. And it was truly hard to debug because we couldn't get why it didn't work, since it worked in our own infrastructure, in various Xen Orchestra we have, and so on. And we realized that the problem with the customer was related to the fact he didn't get any NTP sync on his Xen Orchestra appliance. And when you are doing TOTP, you must have synchronization with an NTP server. So we added that check directly into our health checks thing for XOA. So next time someone will have a problem with this, will notice it a lot sooner. And also it's important to have NTP sync with Xen Orchestra, because it could also compare the time you have within your Xen server or XCP-ng host with Xen Orchestra time, to be sure there's no shift between your machines, because it's exactly the same thing with XCP-ng. If you have a time shift, then you might have issues with the API of the pool and so on. So that's why having the right time on Xen Orchestra is also important, to be sure for the rest of the infrastructure is working correctly. The last feature is related to exologs. So we've been asked multiple times to use something like sending the logs to an external syslog server. So we added that. It's just a small configuration change. It's very simple to do. You just have to enter the TCP address of the syslog server, the remote syslog server, and then all the logs from the exo server process would be sent there. So this will allow you to be sure to centralize all the logs you want to something. Maybe you're already using something like rsyslog or logstash, Graylog, whatsoever. But in any case, now it's very simple to make that modification. Regarding the question in the chat, that's a good question. Right now, we just support TOTP and we use that with OT, but we need to check how far we can be for the physical authentication with YubiKeys. We have some YubiKeys here at Vates, so we could probably take a look on that. But clearly, for right now, I'm not sure we got anything, but this is something we could take a look. Just double check in the issue tracker on GitHub, on the Xen Orchestra repo, if there's or maybe that topic already in an issue. If it's the case, just send a message inside and say that you also need it. And if it's not the case, then feel free to create an issue so we could have this in the we know that someone requested that, so our developers could track the requirement and see how much work we need to do for at least add that for authentication. For the rest, like maybe dangerous action and so on, that's, I would say, kind of different topic that we might investigate too if we need to get a second confirmation for some dangerous action. And if we do that, then that will be automatically integrated with the whatever method you are using to authenticate. So again, if there's no idea like this in the existing GitHub repo, feel free to create one. At least we will know that, and we know that is requested. By the way, that's still the way we work in general. If you have ideas and use case, feel free to share them. We're always happy to see what we can do with that and how much work it is, and then trying to prioritize thanks to the community requests, customers requests, and so on and so on. So that's it for the release by itself.
Yeah, I'm just gonna answer the other question regarding the grace period of the licenses and what happens if you move your license, your XCP-ng license from one host to another. So the idea is that you can indeed move the license, but you cannot do back and forth between your hosts. So once you have moved your license once and you have changed the host cover, you cannot bring back the very same license on the first host. So at least without contacting us to do that.
Yes, exactly.
So
you're
we
right,
tried
and
to keep it simple as much as possible, but we had to put this kind of anti-abuse system indeed.
Yes, it's kind of a history system where the UID, all UID license used on a license, on a specific license, is stored, and so if you try to go back on an existing host, then it will detect it. So you can't do those back and forth, but you can just, as long as you reinstall the machine, you can reapply on the same machine. And we are pretty sure that nobody will try to abuse that by every time reinstalling their own host by changing the UID, because it's not very convenient. So we, as Mark said, find a middle ground between something very easy to use and something to avoid people abusing the system. But again, if you are stuck at some point to deploy it, our support is really happy to listen to your requests.
Totally.
Okay, so that's all for me. Mark, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, not so much. The only thing I want to recall is that on the 8th and 9th of November, we will be at the open source experience in Paris. So if some of you, our booth will be the C28. So if some of you are coming to the open source experience, feel free to join us. We will be very happy to discuss with anyone from the community. And that's it for me. So I think it's a wrap for this time, for this release. And we will see you for the next release in November, in the end of November. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Et arrêtez le streaming.